Thank you very much to everyone who's come back into the room on time. It's great to see you all here again. We've now got, obviously, the best panel session because I'm chairing it. Sorry, Michael. And this is really getting down to what is London Smart Mobility Living Lab all about here in London, and what's the future of CAV testing. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to talk through that. From my perspective, why is TRL involved in all this? It is just the most exciting thing to be doing at the moment in mobility. It's as simple as that. We've got a really big build program. We're going to be finished. We're going to be completed end of Q1 next year, so the end of March 2020. The facility, the first round of funding will have spent. We'll have a working, amazing facility. We've already got clients. We've got people testing with us and doing research with us, and we're hoping for many more people to join. But rather than hear that from me, I think we'll start now and go through. And if you could perhaps just introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and why you're involved in the Living Lab. Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Rote. I'm part of Cubic Transportation Systems, so I'm in the global strategy team. I've been responsible in Cubic for writing Cubic's connected autonomous vehicle strategy, I guess hence why I'm sitting here. Cubic's involved in this because we see an intersection happening of two pretty exciting technologies. One being connected autonomous vehicles and their introduction into an urban environment, and the other one happening at pretty much the same time as mobility as a service. So intermodal journeys being made between public and private operators of vehicles. And so we're taking this opportunity to try to bring those two pieces together. Thanks, Dave.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kim Smith. I work for DG Cities. DG Cities is an urban innovation company which is totally owned by the Royal Borough of Greenwich. We were set up to address the smart city agenda, to look at the growth in Greenwich, the rapid growth in Greenwich, and how smart city innovation could be used to actually create a better environment for its people, rather than having innovation thrust on our residents. How can it actually improve the lives of our residents going forward? So we sort of act as the interface between technology and innovation and the citizen, if you like. I won't say we're technology ignorant, but we're certainly technology agnostic.
We're not, obviously. Maria Hernandez from Cisco. I'm the head of innovation for Cisco in UK and Ireland. The innovation program is set to tackle big technology transitions and big challenges, and we're looking to provide new opportunities for business and society. So this is one of the big projects that my team is working on, and we are really excited.
Hi, I'm Camilla Fowler, and I'm head of risk management at TRL. I've been involved a lot in the development of the safety case framework for managing the risks associated with automated vehicle trials. And I'm really focused on making sure that we maintain safety within the SMLL for the people affected by testing and services within SMLL, but also making sure that we actually set the benchmark for safety and managing the risks with automated vehicle trials.
I'm Tracy Ross. I'm a Senior Research Fellow at Loughborough University in the Design School. So personally, my area of interest is much more around the user side of things. So I'm more interested in people and people's reactions to these new technologies, whether they understand them, how things like autonomous vehicles might sit in the kind of sort of wider, more holistic mobility as a service has already been mentioned. I think at Loughborough University more widely, obviously we can bring that academic knowledge, and we also bring the opportunities maybe to address some of the bigger questions that we might have around future mobility, and bring that kind of multidisciplinary approach. So I'm from design, but we've also got people in transport studies, engineering, computer science, maths, so a huge range of disciplines that we can bring to the topic.
Hello, I'm Michael Hurwitz, Director for Transport Innovation at Transport for London. Transport for London's involved because we're kind of in charge of transport in London. And if you're going to be trying stuff on the streets and going through our junctions, then we want to make sure that it is safe, and that, as we said, it's about people. It'd be nice if we're doing things to make it a better experience being in a city and getting around the city rather than just trying out some gadgets.
My name is Ben Coulter. I'm the Head of Sustainability at the London Legacy Development Corporation, the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and we are a regeneration agency responsible for delivering the legacy of the 2012 London Games. We are lots of things. We're landowner, we're developer, we're events host, we're planning authority, we're estates manager, and we're an employer both directly of the organisation but more broadly across our supply chain for construction to the tune of billions of pounds of development. So we're very interested in places, people and innovation, and so we've got a lot of interest in how the advanced mobility agenda plays out, and we see SMLL as a really great way of being involved in this.
Thank you, everyone. That's a really good introduction. I've got to come to Michael now because I love the comment about it's not just about testing out gadgets. I often feel sometimes like I've got a whole range of people talking to me who are telling me all about this great solution, but I don't quite yet understand sometimes what the problem is, if that makes sense. You know, we've got this thing that can do ... And in the context of London, why London? What makes the capital a good option for testing the future of this mobility from your perspective? Why are you backing it?
Well, we've got a growing population. It was built hundreds of years ago. We want to keep it growing, people moving around, visiting in a good way, an environmentally friendly way, in a safe way. And we're going to have to hurl every possible bit of innovation at it that we can. Do you mind? I want to ask the audience a question.
Please.
Because I want to say something. I want to know how to pitch it. If you don't mind, for those who are able, can I ask you to just stand up for a second?
We're keeping seated on the stage.
Will you stand up?
Okay.
I'm going to sit down because I'm asking the question. Right. Okay. So I'm going to call out some years. Right. And I'd like you to sit down when you hear the year or the period by which time you think autonomous vehicles are going to be like really, really common.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, if anyone wants to keep standing up the whole time, I know a guy called Mark Wilde trying to deliver Crossrail for us, railways engineer, thinks it's never going to happen, right? So, okay, 2020. Okay, everyone's standing up. Okay, 2025. Okay, a couple of technology optimists. Okay, 2030. Right. 2040. And the people still say, are you never, or are you just a bit longer? A bit longer. Okay, well, thank you for standing up. I'd like these guys to... Well done. Okay, so the point I was going to make, because we've got quite a broad range.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, we've written out in the Mayor's transport strategy 7 criteria which we will judge new mobility solutions by, any new mobility solutions, whether it's CAVs, drones, micromobility, and in essence, it's which ones help and which ones don't. So I love it. I love new mobility if it allows people who are less able to remain socially and economically active. Fantastic. I love it if it takes people in a harder to serve area that we struggle to provide cost-effective public transport and gives them an easy route, an accessible route to get to the transport network, right? I like it less if we collectively come up with something that is only available for tech-savvy, affluent hipsters, yeah, and doesn't work. I mean, we're in Shoreditch, right? But similarly, I like it less if it takes 60 people out of a well-stacked double-decker bus and smears them into 60 pods, yeah? And Julian does great vehicles, but I'd rather people get the most effective way. And what we say about CAVs, the Deputy Mayor talks about it. We are currently putting all of our effort and all of our engineering effort and a lot of our money into building right now under the streets a partially autonomous, you could maybe call it level 4, shared electric vehicle. It's called Crossrail. Yeah, and so I think I love it all if it helps. And that's our job as the authority, is that we've got to make sure it works for everybody and helps the city work effectively.
That's a great answer, and everyone was nodding, which is a good place to be. And I guess I'm going to come to Kim and Ben as well on this one, because thinking about that point or extending it a bit further, how How do CAVs interplay with the objectives of the existing complex transport systems? How would you see that around Stratford or the Olympic Park, and then coming to Kim perhaps after for Greenwich? Because they may be quite different arguments. Ben, if you want to go first.
You'll be unsurprised to hear that as a mayoral body, I fully support and echo everything that Michael just said. Take it as read. From our perspective, it's interesting. We're an incredibly well-connected with public transport place at Stratford. I think if you imagine a level where you have walking and cycling, following the Healthy Streets agenda, and then you have a gap, certainly on our 600 acres of park, you have a gap between walking and cycling and the fantastic public transport connections we've got. We're really interested to see locally how that gap is filled. And I do echo, genuinely, I do echo the fact that it's not about piling in every gizmo and gadget you can do. It's more about thinking, well, what would make things better? And that should be definitely led by consultation, led with a good ear to the ground, which we have at LLDC with our local communities, not by the availability of technology. So, yeah, I think it's somewhere between where cycling leaves off and where it's going to be smaller numbers than a bus could deliver. Somewhere in that area is probably where the sort of connected autonomous vehicles that we're currently looking at might sit.
That's fantastic. Kim, is that?
Yeah, that chimes with what we're looking at, really, Ben. Greenwich is a remarkably diverse borough. It's got huge diversity of demographics, of geography, and of access to public transport. For me, business as usual isn't going to work. London's growing rapidly. Greenwich is growing exceptionally rapidly. The east of London's growing more quickly than the rest of London. We're also ageing. Our population, our over 65s, are going to increase by 44% in the next 10 years. We cannot carry on as we are, whether it's in pods or autonomous vehicles. If it's still the same cars in congestion, Greenwich will grind to a halt as it grows. What we have to look for is ways of changing that. Now, people have probably heard me say this before. Privately owned vehicles are parked up for 95% of their time. London has 2.7 million privately owned vehicles parked on its streets. If we move connected autonomous vehicles into that and it changes from ownership to usership, we have the opportunity to free up a land area twice the size of Dartmoor, 22 times the size of Hyde Park. The opportunities for changing London's cityscape are huge, but we have to have the policy keep pace with innovation. If we don't, we're just going to create a dystopia, not a utopia.
Thank you. That probably leads me on to my next question then, really, which is, what is SMLL doing? I'm going to come to Maria first, if that's okay. So what is SMLL doing that's starting to address some of these challenges? So we know we've got congested streets. We know, unfortunately, far too many people are dying and being seriously hurt on our streets. What can we do with SMLL and the technologies we're doing to help start to address these questions, these big problems?
Do you mean from the safety perspective?
From all, really, from the technological approach.
Okay. So from the technology perspective, I would think the fundamental point to address is safety, because if people don't feel secure, they will not adapt it. So we need to get public confidence up. So in the way we are addressing the infrastructure is always with the safety at the heart of the design. So from that, we need to allow for data to move at extremely quick rates. So low latency and big bandwidth is the key. So the way we put the design together is that allows for that big response. Two things on that. One, we are going to provision 5G capabilities to complement the networking infrastructure, but also we are bringing to the design what we learn from the world of IoT and bringing that speed on analytics and faster response and getting that insights from the data, looking to do the analytics on that device that we are installing in the roadside cabinet. So the analytics takes place closer to the source of data. I think that will provide that quicker response for that vehicle, facing changing conditions on the road or a pedestrian crossing, and elaborate on that. So that is really important.
That's fantastic. Dave, do you mind?
Yeah, I'd like to build on that too, because I think when we think about in SMLL, connected autonomous vehicles, I don't think we're talking at all about private ownership of those vehicles. I think we are absolutely talking about a shared vehicle. And I think from the perspective of technology, to introduce that shared vehicle into an environment, an urban environment like London, the trick is how do we make that integrated into the environment in London and not a standalone piece of transport that somebody might be able to use in that city. So building on Michael's point about infilling in areas perhaps where public transit coverage isn't so good, how do we make that connected autonomous vehicle work in that space? And so I think part of the work that we're doing within SMLL is to try to bridge that gap, right? Try to make that connected autonomous vehicle actually integrated into the landscape within an urban environment from the start.
I think that's really interesting. This is the Richard Curtin view of what an automated vehicle might be, or the variations. But I think it's important just to get our definitions clear. I very much see an automated vehicle that may be on the streets in London, operating commercially, maybe quite soon. But it would be quite low numbers. It would be very restricted routes it could use. It'd have more sensors on it than you can imagine. And I'm going to ask Camilla to talk about safety in a moment. But if you're going to start to reduce those things, you've got to have a lot of redundancy in the system. So these are really expensive vehicles that do certain routes, that are geofenced, that move people or goods around. That's one type of automated vehicle we could have perhaps in the next year or two. The other sort of automated vehicle that certainly a lot of my colleagues and a lot of the industry, perhaps in this room, are aware of, and talking at the UN from the OEM, the vehicle manufacturer's point of view, is people's personal cars. And how perhaps we don't see the revolution when we do the urban environment, when it just becomes no steering wheel, pedals, moves people around. It's more of now I have a car, and in a traffic jam, this car will drive me in that condition, or it will drive me on the motorway. It'll operate level 3, 4 in certain conditions and offer some automation. But that's a stepping change. That's assisting the driver stroke taking over. I'm going to come back to the lab and this question, and with that in mind, London's going to have both of those two, according to my prediction, on the road by 2030. So how do we manage both of those, and the walking and the cycling, and how is the SMLL coping with that complex array of vehicles? Who wants to take that first?
Can I just say something there?
Yeah.
I think for me, the crucial part is taking the citizens with us. They're part of the story. We don't impose the new technology on the residents of London. And for me, the role of DG Cities, certainly in SMLL, is trying to create that interface between the public sector body, the local authority, working with colleagues at TfL, and the innovation. And I think that has to be part of it. At the moment, people are thinking still very much about owning a vehicle, having a vehicle. We need to actually take people on this ride and this story with us.
Yeah, it's a very good answer, Tracy.
Yeah, just following on from that, I think one of the interesting things, I guess the answer is any vehicle could be an autonomous vehicle, like you were saying, almost like your rail could be an autonomous vehicle. So any vehicle we've got now could be an autonomous vehicle. So I think this aspect of sharing is quite interesting, and these different levels of possibility in terms of one vehicle that is shared sequentially with people, or one vehicle that is shared by people at the same time. And I think that raises the issues of people and how they react to other people. So if you think about on the tube, nobody speaks to each other. If you're in a smaller shared vehicle, that's a completely different environment. So I think there are all those kind of sort of societal and social things that are going to start coming into play in terms of people's understanding of how that system might work if they're intended to share with this kind of vehicle that might be between the individual pod and the bus, the big bus. How will that kind of sharing happen? And actually, how do you convey that concept to people? As soon as something completely different, technology-wise or society-wise or as a service comes in, it's conveying that concept to people that is the real key. And you can only know how to do that by engaging with those people very early on in the process, I think, and then being part of kind of co-creating that new technology or that new service.
Michael, I think you had...
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you asked how's it all going to work in 2030? Anyone who tells you how that's going to work now is basically bullshitting. Right? Because we don't know. We actually don't know. And that is why something like SMLL is so important. Because I guess there's certain things that we know about the future, right? We know that it is probably, according to the laws of physics, always going to be the most efficient way of getting people around with public transport. It just is always going to be that way. And also we know that the healthiest thing to do is to walk and cycle, right? So that isn't going to change. I guess someone could invent some amazing medicine that negates the need for it. But the reality is, we know that those are going to be the things we're driving towards. Everything else, frankly, is up for grabs. And the philosophy we have to bring to this is, look, let's engage with this and shape it. Because I don't think anybody wants to have this done to us, right? And the opportunity you have in SMLL is in a safe environment. It's really great that you bring the TRL safety ethos here, because whatever we try, we can't prostrate ourselves to the technology gods and just, whatever happens. No, we've got to make sure that whatever we try, you give a safety assurance and safeguards around it, but it's to try versions of what that world can look like and decide which are the best ones for the people who are going to be using them and benefiting from them, and minimising the negative impacts on I guess, disadvantaged communities or whoever else we feel that we need to ensure are provided for.
Camilla, I'm going to ask Camilla, do you mind coming in on the safety point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing that you were saying about building public confidence and making sure that people are willing to accept these vehicles. We're not going to get people into these vehicles unless we can build confidence and change people's perception, I think, about automated vehicles. And I think one of the key things is getting from where we are now to that sort of unknown state, really, that we're going to have in 2030 in a safe environment, and actually controlling the potential risks associated with these vehicles. And certainly within SMLL, it's about making sure that actually we're creating a safe environment, that we actually understand what are the different features on our routes, what are the hazards that could be posed by those features on the route. How do we then monitor that? How do we monitor the interactions between the vehicles on the route and those potentially hazardous features, or indeed just different features that may be more complex or less complex for an automated vehicle to negotiate? And it's making sure that we've got a safe route, that we've got functionally safe vehicles, and actually people can demonstrate to us that their vehicles are functionally safe. And then once you've got the safe route and you've got a functionally safe vehicle, making sure that your operations are safe. How does that vehicle then interact with members of the public, pedestrians, vulnerable road users? How do they interact with each other? And how can we assure safety and demonstrate safety to the various different stakeholders and also to members of the public?
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the technologies now. And I guess the question here is, so let's make an assumption that we need these technologies because they're going to be part of the solution. Innovation is going to help achieve some of the benefits we want and do that safely. So the question really is, what new technologies do you guys see that are going to be essential to help us develop CAVs across London? And I don't know, probably Maria, you first and then Dave? Or...
Sure, I wouldn't mind just starting off if you don't mind.
Yeah,
just
okay,
because,
yeah.
I'm in the flow now, you see. That's it. I can't stop.
That's fine.
But one of the big challenges that we've got is taking the driver out of the vehicle. That's one of the big things. These driverless vehicles potentially. We need to be able to take the safety driver out, and in order to be able to do that, we need to have good communications. We need to have reliable communications, and to be able to demonstrate that those communications aren't going to fail. And that actually remote supervision is reliable and robust. So that's sort of what I wanted to say from a safety point of view.
Following that, I mentioned the way we approach the design is with security not as an afterthought, but really Cisco builds security in every single product, but also then how you put them together. And that's what we are doing here. Also, as we know, there is more sensors, more devices, more radars, there's more cameras. The more things that you connect to the network, your surface attack increases. So cybersecurity is really important. that is also part of, I think, the value add that we bring to the consortia, because people may not know, but we stop 20 billion threats into our global networks every day. So we know one thing or two about cybersecurity, and we are bringing this here. So that's important for us.
Thank you. Dave, do you want to?
Yeah, so new technologies coming along, and we were talking a lot, obviously, about connected autonomous vehicles themselves, but I think when we also think about the experiences within SMLL, there's other pieces of technology in that puzzle. And so from our perspective, when we're talking about providing the citizens of London with a new mode of transit, how does that mode become available for use by people who want to use it as part of an overall journey? So there is technology that we're looking at on creating an open marketplace, which can connect people who want to use a particular mode of transit, maybe have a relationship with a service provider to an operator, and that operator may operate a variety of different vehicles. So they may operate drivered vehicles, and they may operate autonomous vehicles. And so how do we link those two together that says, I'm a person, I want to make a journey, I'm an operator, I can make that journey, and that there's a contract made in the creation of accepting a journey, and that after the journey is done, the operator gets paid by somebody making that. And that's a brand new piece of platform that we're going to be making available through SMLL.
And a really, fantastic example of what we're doing. We're going to time out soon, and I'm going to follow Michael's tradition now and overrun a little bit, so apologies, but we will finish on time, I promise. But just before I open up questions to the floor, I guess the last questions for you guys, or the last question for you guys is, how do the folk in this room get involved? How do we reach out more and get more engagement? And Ben, I'm going to start with you, and then we can come this way.
Come and have a look. From March next year, SMLL will be operating, so come and have a look. See how it works, see how it interacts with people, vice versa. I think we still don't know. I certainly don't know. I'm a Luddite, so I couldn't possibly know. But we still don't know quite what, if you imagine SMLL as a centre of a spider diagram, all the things that go off it in terms of research, in terms of engagement with supply chains, users, all of that is still to be decided. So yeah, come and have a look and watch this space.
We can work this way, Michael, that's fine. Perhaps Camilla?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that actually consultation, engagement, being all together in this is actually really key to accelerating learning and making sure that we actually are doing the right things. So my advice is really to, come and join us. Come and be part of the programme. Tell us your information. We'll tell you our information. Let's actually accelerate our learning by sharing our lessons learned and doing it together.
Tracy, I think.
Yeah, I think what I'd really be interested in, I think Richard mentioned at the beginning about us kind of engaging, the higher education engagement and the PhD students to tackle those slightly bigger problems. I think what the best engagement you could have with us is in terms of what are those questions? What are all the questions that you can have that we actually kind of need to tackle more holistically as a group, and we can start building those into kind of maybe research programs associated with SMLL, as well as kind of individual industry partners kind of actually using it kind of for their own testing and so on. We can maybe tackle those slightly bigger ones. So in terms of what are the questions, what are the potential foreseeable problems that we could start tackling?
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would say somebody already approached me before. They have some solutions that they could complement what Cisco does in this space. Brilliant. So we'll continue the discussion. I think it's not just a technology play, even if that's my topic. I think the user angle is really important, but also even more important, the business model. How is this going to be commercially viable? Because I, for one, would love to leave my car. I don't like driving. I don't know how to park. I love to get this service going that is commercially viable to be used every day. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, good answer.
And really, I'd just echo that. It's pretty timely, Richard, because it's not just SMLL that DG Cities is involved in. We're involved in other RUK projects, and we're always looking for feedback from the public, from experts, from you guys in the room. And certainly, The SMLL website is a source of information. It gives people the information on how to contact us, how to talk to us. But I'd also put in a plug for the DG Cities website here. We're going to be running surveys later this year to see what people's appetite is towards the uptake of AV, what your concerns are, what your wishes are, what you'd really like to see controlled, what you'd like to see more open. So please stay in touch with us. We need you guys to help us.
Thanks, Kim. David?
Yeah, I've got a few words. So the marketplace that I described kind of has been defined after a few years of discussions with global transportation agencies. So the challenges that the team here has discussed around London actually exist all over the planet. So we've taken what we've heard and we've kind of defined what I've loosely described here. I think one of the things that we'd really like to do now is talk to the users of SMLL about what would they like to have out of something that's not car related, something that's not safety related, but something that's actually related to using a service within an integrated multimodal transport environment in a city.
Fantastic. And my speech earlier that I was really struggling to read and mumbling through, well, one of the sections that I don't know if I sort of communicated very well was about the ecosystem that we're building here. So this is about all of us here working together, but it's about the partners, it's about our members. It can be about SMEs and startups coming to join with us. It's certainly about academia. So we've very much got a very open view as to how we collaborate, because I think as Tracy said, what are these questions? We need to keep revisiting that because we don't know some of these problems yet. I think we should open it up to the floor. So any questions? There's a hand right at the back. I can't see.
Ben from Affy Parking. Great panel. I'm just interested, not only as corporates, but also London citizens. 9 months isn't very far away. So maybe 9 months and then 24 months. What would you as citizens love to see within the SMLL?
Fantastic question. Anyone want to take that?
Well,
as a citizen?
Yeah, as a citizen. I mean, it's partly infused by what I'm interested in as well in the job. But what I really want to see, you might want to call it like land as a platform, is where it's getting things mobile and green. One of the attractive things about the partners is that it's got energy in there. And I don't know about you, but as a citizen, I really, really care about the climate emergency. And we've got to find a way of getting the energy to get us around in a way that is, isn't going to screw us over even more than we are now.
And Tracy and then Kim.
I'm not a citizen. If I was, I'm up in Leicestershire. If I was a citizen here, I think the main thing I'd be thinking about, there's a lot of conversation about communities getting quite disconnected now. I think there was some kind of recent research about forcing people to talk to each other on public transport, for example, and actually people feel quite good when they do it. I think what I'd like to see is that any research at SMLL takes that into account, so that it's one of the things we're striving for, as well as the environmental benefits, the safety benefits. We should also be thinking about kind of well-being and more connected communities, because I think if you do that, then you kind of encourage that sharing. You kind of have the connected community first and the sharing later, rather than trying to impose a sharing on a disconnected community. So I think that's what I'd like to see.
Try and force people to talk to each other on the tube, when you're like rammed up against someone else.
Yeah, I think
I feel a bit weird.
I think it was Bristol University, and they
I never talked to someone I'm that close to them.
They force people to have conversations on buses and things. And I'm thinking, if you're in this little pod of 4 people that you don't know, you're going to have to talk to each other, aren't you? Surely.
I'm going to say something I shouldn't. I once, when I was quite young and I first came to London, somebody asked me how I was, and I told them. They said, "Are you all right?" They didn't really want to know, and there's differences. Anyway, let's let any more questions.
Hi, I'm Hein Jung from Imperial. I'm a PhD student there. My question is, do you envisage a centralized transport system in the future or a decentralized transport system? So to give an extreme example, using the conventional trailer problem, if you have a car that is an autonomous vehicle that is driven by a centralized system, and it is in a situation where it has to either kill 5 people or 1 person, really sad, sorry. Just looking from numbers perspective, it would go for the route where it only kills one person. However, if I'm a driver and that one person happens to be my friend, I would want it ideal. I'm not the driver, I mean I'm the passenger of the autonomous vehicle. I would want the vehicle to go ideally in the direction of the 5 people, unfortunately. And in a decentralized system, it would be, I'm envisaging that it will be able to take my wishes into consideration as a passenger in the vehicle. However, in a centralized system, it would look at the entire societal wishes or what's good for the entire society. So what kind of system do you envisage in the future?
Okay, who wants to say that? Well, Kim's put a hand up.
Can I kick off?
Yeah, Kim goes.
Hopefully, it will not arise. If we're testing autonomous vehicles to the point where they are allowed to be autonomous, they should not be in a situation where anybody gets killed. And if they don't get to that point, then they shouldn't be allowed to be driven autonomously.
Ben.
I also think the ethics question, the trolley bus question is sociologically interesting. But if you were to flip it around and say, would we permit any person out there, depending on how deep their pockets are and how big their vehicle is, and to be able to ride in any state or drive in any state of inebriation, would we accept that as an option? I think we'd be running for connected autonomous vehicles as quickly as possible. So yeah, hopefully they'll be safe, but yeah.
I think there's a number of factors here. I mean, I think as soon as you go into the whole ethics argument, you have to understand that actually everybody's morals are different, so you can't have one system that fits everybody's morals. I think what is more important is, sort of echoing what Kim says, is that actually we maintain the safety of these systems. And actually, who are our vulnerable road users? It's cyclists, it's pedestrians, maybe it's motorcyclists. So if there is a choice of it hitting maybe a brick wall or a pedestrian, then you've got to go for the brick wall. And they may be more sensible choices if it needs to make a choice than this sort of moral dilemma, if you like. Which I don't think is going to be too helpful.
If I may quickly respond to that. So who gets to determine what sensible means?
Well, it's going to detect things earlier than we can detect them. It's not going to be stressed by a situation. It's not going to be fatigued, distracted, tired. You know, the probability of that event even occurring is going to be so much more reduced. So I think it is a matter of being the best that it can, you know, detecting things that are in the path of the vehicle and responding in a functionally safe way. And I think that's what's key.
And that's great. I'm going to have one more question before we time out, if that's okay. One last question. Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Jakob from Latent Logic. Slightly technical and specific question, if that's all right for Maria. You mentioned doing some processing of data kind of at the edge near the sensor. And if you're able to, I'd be interested if you could just expand a little bit on which data sources you mean and what sort of processing is being done there, rather than kind of at the back end.
So we are looking at, we've done this in the smart cities scenarios, where there's a lot of sensor data, whatever sensors are we deploying right now, all the camera, we go in this project more than 300 cameras.
If my mic's on, we've got cameras, we've got V2X, and we've got other sensors that are monitoring the traffic flow on the network.
Yeah, so all that. We are building the capability and to be able to analyze, as I said, as close to the, some of the analytics can be done on the camera itself, so you don't need to take that data anywhere. It's only if you want to do further processing or you have to keep the data for storage or other reasons, then you take it to the cloud. But it's having that agility of how the system works, and this is being tested here, and it's being tested in other scenarios like the smart cities, and where you need that speed of operations.
I would suggest for the detailed questions, and we really welcome them, that either these guys or coming through our website, come and ask us the questions, and we'll try our best to explain what it is we're doing, either through frequently asked questions on the website or through one-to-one engagement. We'd really welcome that. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it time there. I'd like to thank you guys for asking such great questions. I'd especially like to thank the panelists in the sort of traditional way, please. So, a round of applause.